Prynawn da, to Cardiff, the capital city of Wales. And here we are in the west of Cardiff, surrounded by the communities of Caerau and Ely that Russell's been talking to you about. My name is Dr. Dave Wyatt. I'm the co-founder of the CAER Heritage project, along with my colleague Ollie, who you'll speak to later, and indeed Dave Horton, who's not here today, but he's from Action in Caerau and Ely. And so the community development organisation you've been hearing about are fundamentally, shaped this project. And what you might justifiably ask, what are we doing, bringing you live to a community dig? And there's a good reason for that, because our project is really about, very in tune with the theme of this conference, because it's really about collective action and facing challenges in the community. But we do that in a very special way. We do it through a kind of collective discovery of the past, and we create new knowledge together as a community. And that is quite a diverse community. And archaeological digs are wonderful because they bring people together. They create communities in themselves. And those are made up of quite often quite different people. And friendships form that last a long time in those digs. So that is why we kind of use archaeology and heritage as a vehicle to do community development work. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we've got planned for you now in the next sort of 45 minutes is, I'm just going to give you a little bit more on CAER Heritage and how it kind of came to be and its values and how it relates to the local communities and action in Caerau and Ely. Then I'm going to invite some colleagues from that local community development organisation, Action in Caerau and Ely. We're going to sit down here. I've got a microphone here and we're going to have a little chat, and I'm just going to interview them and ask them some questions about the challenges locally and about their work as community development organisation within Ely and Caerau. And then we're going to do something quite fun. I hope this is going to work. We're going to go on a little walk around the dig, and I'm going to speak to some of the community members here and the volunteers who've been involved, some of who've been involved for a long time, some who are just joining us this year, a little bit about what discovering that heritage to pass, their heritage means to them, a little bit about the challenges that they face as community members, and a little bit perhaps about the challenges people face around things like education and well-being, and a little bit about CAER Heritage in the context of that. So we're going to have a walk around the site here, and we'll talk to a few little people in soundbite interviews. Then once we've done that, we're going to go over the back there to where our lovely tents are. We've got a bit of shade, and we're going to have a chat with my colleague Ollie and a couple of people from the university, because CAER Heritage is very much a university community partnership. And I think that is something interesting to unpack, especially as you're sitting in the University of Glasgow. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that kind of university community partnership working. And then I'm going to call all the guys that we've spoken to up, and we're going to sit out here in the sunshine, and you're very welcome to ask us some questions. So that is the plan for our session, and I hope that sounds interesting. I'm going to sit down now, I think, Viv, on the spoil heap. So I'm here on the spoil heap. This is some of this has probably come out from the Bronze Age, almost 4,000 years old, some of this soil. Just to say a little bit more about Caerau and Ely, I think Russell's given a good overview there, but these are communities that face a lot of challenges, and those challenges have become more profound, I think, in the last 5 years, certainly since the pandemic, around things like food poverty, poor educational progression, health and well-being issues, and a lot of in-work poverty as well as unemployment. But as Russell alluded, these are amazing communities, as these are. It's just full of assets, it's full of knowledge, talent, activism, and you can see that today in action here at the dig. Wonderful place, friendly, and people who really want to take those challenges face on collectively together. And what we've done really with CAER Heritage is we've taken the asset-based approaches of Action in Caerau and Ely, and we'll hear a little bit more about that in a second, and that kind of co-productive or co-creative approach. And we've just applied that to discovering the past and using, as I say, the discovery of the past together to tell a different story about these communities and to really help people and provide people with new life opportunities. Now, this word CAER, you might be interested in. It's an interesting word. It's an ancient word. It's a Welsh word. And it's actually in the name of the place name here, Caerau, which literally means fort, so it means fort, But in a way, that's not a very good word for it. What it really means is a defended place or a settlement that's very, that's outlined. And the reason that this place is called CAER is that half a mile up the road from where we're digging now is an enormous historic monument, CAER Hill Fort. It's a huge feat of engineering from 2,500 years ago. In the middle of a hill would have been a very large settlement of prehistoric houses surrounded by ditches and banks that would have taken many people collectively to build. What's interesting is that's the largest monument in Cardiff. It's probably the oldest monument in Cardiff, and there was nothing there. There was no interpretation, no museum, nothing. And part of the reason probably was because of the stigmas associated with the communities here. People say, I won't go there. And archaeologists hadn't come to work here. But actually, that's the reason that myself and my colleague Ollie wanted to come here, because we knew that the communities here faced challenges, but we also knew that there were incredible heritage assets, as well as these wonderful assets that the community hold for themselves. And we naturally gravitated, therefore, to our partners at Action Caerau and Ely, who were just getting started at the same time as we were, because this all happened about 15 years ago. And we had a meeting very early on in the local school. Behind us is a local school, Cardiff West. We worked with that school for a long time, and we'll be talking to a former pupil from there shortly. But back then, it was a very rundown school. It's a beautiful new school now. But we had a meeting there, and it's a very important meeting because the project values were really outlined at that by a collective of community members, us as university people, community development workers, teachers, and local young people. And what we decided we should do with that heritage is that we wanted to discover that incredible past together and involve everybody in that, for everybody to bring their collective talents to that. And then through that discovery, we wanted to open up, very broadly, new life opportunities. Now, that could mean anything from going on an amazing journey and getting a higher education degree and becoming an archaeologist or something like that, to getting out of the house for the first time in a while, to meeting people, making friends, being with people, being part of something bigger that's important, and making new networks and friendships that don't exist for communities like this. And that is a big part, and for all of us indeed, because of course we've learned an awful lot. In fact, our whole approach to researching the past has been changed by working with these communities and working with Action in Caerau and Ely. And the third very important thing that we wanted to do was to challenge all of those negative stories that had arisen from some of those civil disturbances that have been locally, and just generally the sort of poverty and stuff in the area, to challenge those stigmas, those negative stories that keep getting regurgitated in the media, and to tell a different story for Caerau and Ely, to tell the story we knew about all these amazing people and their talents and knowledge through that discovery of the past. And, what's really interesting is that hill fort and this place here that we're now digging, in prehistory, these were the power centres. This was the original Cardiff before all of the urban stuff that's down here behind me was built, and the power centre now resides down the bay in Cardiff at the Senedd. But back in prehistory, this was the power centre. And that's an important discovery and story to tell for communities that are seen as being socially and economically marginalised, but also literally physically marginalised now because we're literally on the edges of Cardiff. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what CAER Heritage is about. We've been going now for 15 years. A couple of other things I just want to mention before I invite the guys over for a chat. As I said before, education and open educational opportunity has been a massive part of what we do, and we involve young people of all ages, from local schools in high school through to primary school, right down to the sort of youngest groups of young people, and we're getting them working with the university to break down barriers, to break down ideas about coming into higher education. We've worked a lot with creatives. Creatives are involved, and we've got a wonderful creative here helping to film us and set this whole thing up. Viv, who's a local cameraman, filmmaker, who's made loads of films for us. We have artists, and that's always been a very important part of telling that new story, to tell that new story to the rest of the world through the involvement of creatives. And we also, over years, we started very small. We hadn't really done anything, Ollie and myself, like this, and we certainly, Dave from ACE hadn't worked with anyone from the university very much. We started small, But over time, especially through these community digs, we built trust, we built relationships, equal reciprocal partnerships through that co-creation, that co-production and discovery of the past. And that led to lots of spin-offs and organic things that kind of followed us until eventually we were able to get a major grant. And we actually have a beautiful community heritage centre and hub, literally half a mile up the road, which is actually staffed by 2 full-time people funded by Cardiff University, but embedded in the community. And that's the other important thing, that university community partnership involved myself and Ollie being here, being in the communities a lot, all the time, meeting and building that trust.